So we'll go in order. Table 2 first, table 3 and so on. So table 2, have you any comments?
I don't think we've the answers to your questions. I think we've got more questions for you. Just to go through, I assume is the insurance premium paid for by the client as a part of the budget for the project, or part of the cost plan? Okay. And who chooses if a claim is made? Say if there's unforeseen events in a project, if there's asbestos discovered, if there's bad geotechnical information, who decides to make the claim?
Because the contracts are let with open book accounting in complete transparency. So unlike the traditional arrangements, no one's going to make a killing out of a claim. And to ensure that the most appropriate solution is put in place, the technical auditors and the cost consultants employed by the insurers will vet any claim. But insurers vet claims in any event. There's nothing new here. The point I made earlier is that the team partners often spend the insurer's money. It isn't a controlled technical environment, so that's how it happens.
And Stephen, I suppose on your test projects, like how do the parties involved in it feel that, say, if there's a fault by any one individual, that's a clear, somebody's dropped the ball, and is that a black mark against the rest of the team for the next project? Say if you're pre-qualifying for the next project, this is, have you had a claim in the last 7 years? Oh yeah, we've had, 3 but none of them were our fault.
All I'll say there is that people need to choose their partners carefully. And if your profit share's on the line and your pain share's on the line, you're going to be very, very cautious as to who you partner with. But that's good, because it will drive quality.
One final question in terms of how things deal between, say, like a main contractor and his subcontractors. Is the main contractor is he responsible for any delays or cost overruns related to his subcontractors? Are they party to the insurance as their collateral agreements or other legal relationships?
The insurance covers the entire supply chain because it has to. We don't want to be cutting out claims at the top and to see them come back in further down. What might happen, depending upon the size and complexity of the project, the main contractor may cascade his proportion of the pain share down to his subcontractors so people get tied in. There's a limit to how far you can go down. You don't want the widget supplier being involved in the pain share, gain share. It needs to be sensibly managed. And I think models will evolve. With a demonstration project, the supply chain is fairly limited. But as people become more and more used to working in this environment, I think the models will develop and evolve.
Okay. Table 3.
Thanks. For the first question, we kind of focused on the kind of insurance contract itself, and we kind of 3 points that need to be reflected in it or changed or considered for it. And the first one was a clear definition of project delivery methods, what standard they were to, and what would be covered, and more importantly, what would not be covered. The second was a change in, to reflect the change in adversarial positions, to again reflect and promote the collaborative approaches. And the third one was to incentivise the use of methods by reducing, should they reduce premiums, the use of these methods should be incentivised if they do in fact reduce exposure to risk. On the second question, we struggle with this a little bit, and we kind of split it up into two. If the main contract, or if a contractor is making design suggestions, we reckon that it's kind of reflecting the existing situation and that no additional cover will be required. However, if the contractor was making design decisions or delivering design deliverables or design particulars, then yes, he would need cover. And the way we were trying to clarify that would be really if he was being brought on board as a design consultant or a construction consultant at an early stage, if he was some way linked to the project, had a contract for the project, or in fact was being paid, then he would need insurance as he was making design decisions.
Okay. Table 4, please.
I suppose what we did was to break down the questions to refer to level 1 and level 2 and level 3. For level 2, we felt that legal liability policy cover would need to be in place, that protocols also would need to be in place for each of the consultants for the BIM process, and we felt that accreditation, which seems to be missing in the industry at the moment, for each individual designer's process is also warranted. The protocols and contracts would need then to be passed on to the insurer from the outset to ensure that they're satisfied with, I suppose, the design through the BIM process. From a level 3 point of view, our question again was who pays for the insurance? Is it the client or is it by each of the designers? Obviously, it's great that the designer's liability is removed and now it's more a risk management process. The question there was on risk and gain, in that with risk, we felt, I suppose, from Graham that the first 500,000 of a cost overrun could be attributed to the design team, and how that proportion would need to be agreed initially. But also, if there was the contract came below budget, is there a gain, and how that is distributed between the designers. Then from the question number 2, I suppose we had more questions here on the actual question than we did probably answers. From a level 2 point of view, I suppose we were asking whether the contractor is involved from information modelling or from a management point of view. Is he being brought in as a designer or as an initial consultant regarding the construction? From a level 3 point of view, we questioned whether, I suppose, what the contractor's role is, and it does need to be defined earlier on. Again, is he becoming the designer, and does he need, well, the insurance obviously would be covered on the integrated project insurance. The overall benefit there obviously is that with the contractor on board, that the risk would be reduced, that constructability issues would be ironed out initially, which would be an overall benefit to the project. But I suppose the main question here was, with a traditionally procured construction project, could the contractor be engaged initially within the BIM process?
Okay, Thomas. Steve, just could you answer the question that the consultant's going to get money back if it all comes, and the contractor, if it comes under budget?
Yeah, under the proposed model, the paid share will be mirrored by a gain share, but we felt it was important that there was a cap to both of those, so there's not so much pressure on the design team to spend nothing and make a fortune.
Table 5, then.
Right. In terms of the first question, what we're saying is that at the moment insurance contracts are with the design teams on an individual basis, and that liability would need to become joint and several in an integrated team basis. We were uncertain how this would become applicable, or insurance would become applicable when design practices have multiple contracts running simultaneously. Would require a rethink. We also noted that we'd require a suite of insurers to buy and cover when you've got different risks. At the moment, insurers tend to work in silos, and they would need to be brought together to provide insurance for one particular project. The other point, contracts may need to be adjusted to mirror the availability of insurance in the market. An example, fit-for-purpose obligations and state-of-the-art in lieu of open-ended contracts. That's the first question. Second question, all the points have been covered already.
Okay, table 6, please.
Hi. Again, we concentrated very much on question 1, and again, similar to other people, we split it down into level 2 and level 3. Again, seeing that level 2, if it's used at its sort of lowest level, could involve no change at all, with each person retaining responsibility for their own work. Obviously, if level 2 can move into a more integrated way of working, and in that case you would need some form of integrated type of contract to make that work. In level 3, we felt that was a complete game changer. I think that point was made already, and it really only works with an integrated team and an integrated project insurance, some form of arrangement. How that actually works, I think, still needs to be ironed out. Again, with level 3, there was a feeling that this was probably going to appeal to some of the larger projects more, in that they would become more multidisciplinary, and that they would do all the disciplines within the same practice, and then the responsibility would just remain with that one practice anyway. It was felt that the BIM execution plan was very important, and that the insurance companies should be taking sight of these. I know the insurance companies don't really ask so much how practices are working at the moment, but we felt they probably should be doing a bit more of that, and examining the risk and examining how BIM will affect that by looking at the execution plan. I don't know, in terms of question 2, I suppose we didn't really get to question 2, to be honest. We discussed a lot of things and discussed the question, but we didn't really get any answers.
Okay, that's fine. Table 7, please.
We just made a number of observations on each of the questions, a number of which have already been answered. On question 1, we just thought that it would suggest obviously a project-specific policy for individual projects going forward, and each project would have a different design team, a different set of players involved. We'd also envisaged that implementation of the new approach there'd be a lengthy transition period that would need to accommodate both the individual policies and collective cover for these integrated projects. And obviously it would need to be less adversarial between the design team members to promote innovation. And the question for us is the methodology. How would it be paid for, the proportion input by each team member and the client, and how this is calculated. On question 2 then, it raised questions for everyone else. Just our read of it suggested a design build approach if there's a contractor involvement at a very early stage. Just my own experience, contractors sometimes bring their own bespoke systems of building prefabrication methodologies to the table, to which the design team members would work. And possibly in this scenario there'd be an element of responsibility for the contractor or his specialist contractor. But that's again a question for the project in question.
Right, thank you. Table 8, please.
Table 8. We decided that there was there can be no longer a straightforward blame process. And at the moment, insurances are set up where you can actually trace back accountability. So fundamentally, the building blocks of the core insurance arrangements will have to be changed. But that does contribute to a lonely BIM process and goes against the whole meaning of BIM. So the solution Airtable put forward was a single insurance program in terms of garage insurance, where if you work in a garage and your car is there, anyone can drive it that works in the garage. We did acknowledge that this would account for a higher insurance rate, but with everyone bought into a single insurance, it should be able to be covered. As for question 2, we didn't really get add anything extra that anyone else hasn't, but what we did say was that the contractor price at present, as a normal contract, is taken on board, but it's up to the architect taken on board. So the design liability doesn't have to be changed there, as in the BIM process itself there's an architectural model and a construction model. So even though the contractor will be coming on to start the construction process, it's up to the architect to take on his solutions, and if not, then it wouldn't make a difference to liability.
Thanks. Table 9, please.
With 8 tables before us, pretty much everything we discussed has already been mentioned, but just on question 1, we too broke it into a level 2 BIM and a level 3 BIM. Level 2, we really saw very little change. Early engagement with insurers was vital, with stricter protocols. In terms of level 3, we felt that there was protocols required to define the separate teams' responsibilities, but we were very unsure how a collective policy would work in reality. We would need a better understanding of how the insurers assess the risk from all the individual companies within the team. And then on question 2, we spent so much time on question 1, really. We didn't really get a huge amount of time on question 2, but our kind of initial thoughts were early engagement should reduce liabilities, and we didn't foresee any significant liabilities.
Okay, thanks. The last one, table 10.
Thank you. We came up with a short suggestion in terms of question number 1, and that is that, in effect, that the insurer should form part of the team, that the insurer should be integrated into the whole system, and it is not a question of this being outside, that whatever the team comes up with, the insurer buys into, whether that's in terms of project insurances and whatever, but that all of this should come down to that essentially there are no barriers, and that whatever the integrated team comes up with is what goes forward. In terms of question 2, we had a long discussion in relation to this, and I have nothing written in front of me because we came up with no answers.
Thanks very much. I suppose we're coming towards the end, but just to say on table 1, first of all, a lot of you failed. I might mention that. I mentioned it to my small sons doing the junior and intermediate. They only answered 1 question out of 2. So we felt that question 1, the BIM protocol, obviously was absolutely vital. A series of amendments to the contracts of both the main contract and the professional contracts to clarify issues that might arise because of the exchange of information. We just mentioned in passing that if there's a software problem, the people that won't be liable are the software people. They have that written out of every contract that they have, so if there is a problem there, people had better have figured out who's going to pick up the liability from that. That was just one instance of it. I think the other instance we gave was somebody pulling out because they wouldn't pay their fees, and where does that leave everybody else and the liability that might flow. But anyway, we felt a BIM protocol was vital, and that where there are conflicts, it was important that the BIM takes precedence on that. On item, there's question 2. The only example we could think of was piling. You know, where a piling contractor is on board, and then needless to say, we don't like nominated contractors, so we were going to hand them over to the main contractor just at the end of it. That really brings it to a close. I think Alan, sorry, Ralph wants to say something. Yeah.
You mentioned choosing your partners carefully, and I just wanted to know how you saw that working with procurement, as it is in the EU, and where design services are procured and basically the teams are assembled without a choice, and the whole thing with IPI.
But I do think that choosing your partner carefully is really critical to this working. And we see project insurance integrator working, at least initially, working particularly well where you have a repeat client, such as the MOD, because the prospect of further work should also drive quality. But it is a different way of thinking, absolutely. It's a question of knowing who the best people are in your industry to do that particular piece of work. And if that's the driver behind selection rather than just price, I think that must improve quality. But it will be different, you're right.
Okay. I'm just going to hand over to Alan in a minute, but just for a minute before that, from the Association of Consulting Engineers, we really have to thank Griffith and Armour, Graham and Steve for coming here today. It's fantastic to have somebody who's at the cutting edge of something and that you can ask a straight question and get a straight answer back. It's fantastic. My own very lasting feeling on the thing is that we need to, there are two challenges I think to educate our clients on the benefit of integrated project insurance, which Steve has illustrated the benefits extremely well. And just sort of left field one as well, I think just as a body we need to be more aware of the difference between level 2 and level 3 BIM and to face up to the different issues that occur for level 3 BIM. So first of all I'll hand you back to